Okay, so today we're going deep on something that sounds kind of like, well, science fiction. India, a global talent hub by 2030.
Yeah, it's a bold prediction for sure.
I mean, robots, AI, everything's changing so fast. Where does India even fit in?
That's the question, right? And our source today, an opinion piece from Greater Kashmir, makes a pretty interesting argument. It's by, let me see, Arhan Bagati, a public policy expert. He says India could actually be leading this whole future of work thing.
Okay, now I'm curious. What makes India so special in this whole, robots taking over scenario?
Well, one thing is India's got a demographic advantage. A lot of countries, they just don't. By 2030, think about it, the median age in India, 28. While other mostly developed nations, they're dealing with populations that are getting older.
So a huge workforce that's ready to,
Exactly, ready to jump in.
if they've got the right skills.
Yeah.
Which brings us to, the fourth industrial revolution. Sounds intense.
Oh, it is. We're talking AI, robotics, the whole thing, automation changing, like what work even means. And India's right there.
So hold on, if I'm listening to this right now, what's this actually mean for me?
That's where it gets real. Just imagine your job, poof, a robot does it. What do you do then? What skills make you irreplaceable? That's what everyone's got to figure out, not just in India, but everywhere, really.
Okay, I'm feeling a little stressed now. Give me some examples. What kind of skills are we talking? Like, how do I not get replaced by a robot?
All right, think about a world where tech's always changing, right? Data literacy, that's huge. It's not just knowing how to use your phone, it's got to be deeper. Analyzing data, getting insights, making sense of it all, and telling people what it means.
So data literacy, it's like the new language everyone needs.
Exactly. And think about the opportunity for India here. They're already big in IT, right? But
Okay.
with data literacy, they go beyond just like basic tech support. Data analytics, market research, heck, even AI development.
Okay, data literacy, got it.
Ugh.
What else do I need to survive in 2030?
Digital fluency, that's key. Again, it's more than just gadgets. Understanding how tech works. New platforms popping up. Gotta adapt. And of course, communicating well, digitally, I mean.
So, I can talk to robots, but, practically. Not like in a movie.
Think of it as being a citizen of the digital world,
Hmm.
comfortable with all the changes tech's always throwing at us. And again, India's young, they get tech, they've got the infrastructure. It's a good starting point.
Okay, data literacy, digital fluency, writing this down. Anything else?
Mm.
I don't want to get left behind.
Can't forget the human side of things. Empathy, communication, working across cultures, all that. It's going to matter more than ever. Robots might do the routine stuff, but it's the human stuff that sets you apart.
Yeah, especially when teams are global, right?
Yeah.
Different time zones, different ways of doing things.
You got it. And India's got a diverse culture, a history of collaboration. They get empathy, understanding. That's gold in a globalized world.
So, sounds like India has a lot of potential. But our source also mentions some, well, bumps in the road.
Yeah.
Like this national education policy, the 2021. What's that about?
Yeah, the NEP. It's a big deal, a reform, trying to give people in India the skills they need for the future. Digital literacy, critical thinking, job training. The problem is, the gap between cities and rural areas is massive.
So just having a young workforce isn't enough. Everyone needs the chance to learn the training.
You got it. It's got to be equal. And that's where you, the listener, come in.
Ooh, okay. I was wondering when you'd bring it back to us. How does all this relate to, someone listening right now?
Well, think about it. Whether you're thinking of investing in India, looking for jobs, or just want to understand what's going on globally, these trends, they matter. Knowing what skills will be hot in India, well, that helps you make decisions about your future, no matter where you are.
So even if I'm not moving to India tomorrow, this is still relevant.
Absolutely. It's a connected world. What's valuable in India, it'll be valuable everywhere.
All right, I'm convinced. Data literacy, digital fluency, empathy. Looks like I got to start learning now.
Never too early to start adapting. And there's a lot more to this. Let's go deeper into some of the hurdles and the exciting stuff India's facing when we come back for part 2. So picking up where we left off, with this whole idea of India not just adapting to the future, but really owning it. Our source, Bhagati, he really emphasizes that.
Yeah, that really stuck with me too, that India could actually become the example, not just keep up.
Exactly. And it's not all about policies or buildings. It's more mindset.
Mindset. So it's not enough to just teach people coding or whatever. There's a way of thinking that's got to change. What's that even look like?
Think of it this way. No one knows exactly what jobs will even exist in 2030.
Right.
But if people are adaptable, curious, always learning, then whatever comes, they're ready.
That actually takes some pressure off. It's not about knowing everything now. It's more like being open to the new stuff.
Exactly. And that's where I think India could really be a model. They've got the tech foundation, a young workforce full of energy. But what if they went even further?
Further, like beyond being good at tech, what do you mean?
Imagine India's known not just for like outsourcing or call centers, but for being the place where new ideas happen, the innovation hub where, I don't know, creativity and solving tough problems, that's what they're famous for.
Okay, that's a big vision.
Yeah.
How do we get from, where things are now to that? Seems like a huge leap.
It is big, and it'll take time, for sure. Our source, Bhagadadi, he keeps coming back to education. That's the foundation. He says all that rote memorization, the tests, that's not enough anymore.
So ditch the whole cram for the exam thing, but then what? What takes its place?
Got to be a bigger picture approach, right? Critical thinking, being able to solve problems, creativity, all that. Not just knowing facts, but knowing how to think, how to analyze stuff, come up with new solutions.
I like that. It's less about having the right answer, more about knowing which questions to ask. Figuring out how to approach a problem, not just memorizing one way.
Exactly. And it's got to be beyond schools and college. It's the whole society, this culture of like lifelong learning, people always upskilling, checking out new ideas, not being afraid of change.
So not just formal education, but companies doing training, people taking online courses, just being curious about learning new stuff.
You got it. It's got to be an environment where learning's valued, accessible to everyone, no matter how old they are, what their background is, where they live, all of that. That's a big part of this innovation hub idea for India.
It's exciting, but what about the practical stuff? What actually needs to happen to make this work?
Well, first things first, gotta invest in infrastructure, right? That means everyone has good internet, they've got devices, and access to quality education, online resources, all that. Like we talked about, that digital divide between cities and rural areas, gotta close that gap, no question.
And because what's the point of amazing online courses if people can't even get online?
Exactly. And along with that, you need industry, universities, and the government all working together. What's being taught needs to match up with what jobs actually need people, you know?
So no more graduating with a degree that's useless in the real world. I get it.
It's about being ahead of the curve, knowing what skills the future needs, and making sure people are ready for those jobs.
Okay, so education, infrastructure, everyone working together. It's a lot. But there's also this sense of, like, opportunity. India's on the verge of something big,
Definitely. And the exciting part is, it's not just about money or jobs. It's about using this chance to make a better future for everybody, make it fairer, more sustainable.
So not just India as a superpower, but doing it in a way that's good for everyone makes a better society. I like that. But our source also brings up some big challenges. We talked about the digital divide, but what about like gender inequality in the workforce?
That's huge. Can't ignore that. If India is going to be a real talent hub, everyone needs a fair shot. That means breaking down barriers for women, for people who've been marginalized, for people with disabilities, everyone. It's about everyone feeling valued, respected, part of the team.
So it's bigger than just teaching skills. It's got to be about fixing the systems that keep people from reaching their potential in the first place.
Absolutely. It's tough, no doubt, but I think India is ready to tackle it.
Okay, lots to think about here. We've got the skills for the future, adapting, always learning, the practical stuff to make it happen, and making sure everyone's included. But there's one more thing I want to get to before we wrap up. Our source, he talks about India setting an example for the whole world. What does that mean to you?
To me, it's like proving that we can build a future of work that's about people, not just profits, you know? Showing the world that it's possible to have a system where everyone can do well, come up with new ideas, and make the world better.
That's a powerful thought. So it's not just about India's success, it's about proving a whole different way of working is possible.
Exactly. And I think India, they're in a unique position to do just that.
Well, I think we've given everyone a lot to think about, covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, and I'm sure there are more questions than answers right now.
That's the cool thing about these topics, right? It's not about finding all the answers. It's about asking the right questions, being open to what's possible.
And speaking of questions, there's one more thing I want to touch on before we get to the final part of our deep dive. All right, so we're back and ready to, wrap up this whole deep dive into the future of work in India. Skills, challenges, opportunities. It's a lot. But there was that one idea from our source kind of stuck with me. India being the example for, well, everyone else.
Yeah, it is a pretty big thought, isn't it? Like India's dealing with the same global changes as everyone else, But they could actually end up being the ones who figure it out first.
But is that real? I mean, is it just like wishful thinking, or does India actually have what it takes to be that model for other countries to follow?
Well, let's think about what we've talked about already, right? India's got this young workforce, and they're getting really good with tech. They're making progress, digital literacy, all those technical skills.
Right, and we can't forget all those, what do you call them, those uniquely human skills,
Hmm.
empathy, communication, being adaptable. Those are important everywhere, but especially when AI and robots are changing everything.
Exactly. And sure, there are challenges. We talked about the gap between cities and rural areas, gender inequality, all that. But the fact that they're even trying to fix those problems, that's a good sign, right? Like the National Education Policy, the 2021, that's a step towards making education more equal and, well, ready for the future.
So it's not pretending the problems aren't there. It's more like admitting they exist and trying to fix them. That could
Wow.
be a good example for other countries too, right?
Definitely. If India can figure out how to close those gaps, invest in their people, create a workforce where everyone has a chance to succeed, that could be huge. Other countries facing the same stuff, they'd be watching.
It's like a giant experiment happening right now. And
But
what's really interesting is it's not just for like economists or politicians to care about. This affects all of us, even if we're not, working in India.
that's the thing. These changes, they'll have a global impact. And what's even cooler is you, the listener, you can actually be a part of this.
Wait, hold on. You're saying our listeners right now can actually do something that affects the future of work in India.
Yeah.
How does that even work?
It's about realizing we're not just like watching this happen, we're all connected. And what we do, even if it seems small, it all adds up.
So like if I really care about education, I could support organizations